Hello, friends, listeners, party people. Welcome back to another episode of Party XP. I'm your host, Lakan, and joined once again is my friend, Jeff. Say hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
How have you been, man?
Man, look, for what we have planned, I'm very amped up. I got a chance to watch the movie in question that we're going to be talking about, and I am ready to talk about it.
It's good to hear. So this episode, we are talking about John Wick 2. You could have seen that we've done a previous episode on John Wick 1, the first movie, right? Jeff had never seen the movie. And after watching it, he's like, yo, good movie so far. So he ended up agreeing to go and continue on with the rest of the series. And, you know, I mean, again, I love this entire series so far. And John Wick 4 comes out later on this year. Actually, 2 months, I think it is.
Yeah, so
next month,
synergy.
Yeah. So it works out perfectly, right? So we're going to be covering John Wick 2 for this episode, and we will be doing an episode of John Wick 3 as well. And hopefully, if I timed this correctly, if I've done my math right, John Wick 3 should land on the weekend that John Wick 4 comes out. So, listeners, if you guys are a fan of the series and you guys are, following along here, we hope that you guys tune in for the next episode, the next time we cover John Wick as well, too, for John Wick 3. But we're going to go ahead and get started here on John Wick 2. John Wick 2 is a 2017 neo-noir action thriller film. So basically the same description I had before for
Right.
John Wick 1. Directed by Chad Stahelski, written by Derek Kolstad, starring Keanu Reeves, my man, as the titular John Wick. And this time, remember I said before, David Leitch was not credited as a director, but even though he technically was directing, this time he had actually, from my understanding and all the articles that I've read, he did technically step back on this one and is an executive producer. So he was no longer actively directing this film. This was a straight up solo Chad Stahelski solo direction film. It was a sequel.
Yeah, but he's still involved. You can
still
tell,
very involved.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. He's he's a veteran of the movie scene. He's still a very very well renowned actor and stunt person and coordinator. So he's still very much so involved. It is the sequel to John Wick from 2014, so 3 years later. It was theatrically released on February 10, 2017. The film grossed $171.5 million against a $40 million budget. Basically 2 times the last films, or the first films, I guess, 86 mil. The filming of this movie was shot in New York City, Rome, Montreal, and studio shots were done in New Jersey. Let's go, Jersey.
Hell yeah.
We're in the map, baby. We're in the talking points. Okay. So for this one, we're just gonna go ahead and talk about the kind of do what we did for John Wick 1. Just talk about talk about sections, then we'll discuss it a little bit.
Yeah, a little plot synopsis and go through things here.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start off here. We start off with a shot of Buster Keaton's silent film on the side of a building, given IRL sound effects from the bike crash happening in the story. John's chasing down a goon on a bike while he drives the Chevy Chevelle SS from the last movie. He chases the guy, crashes him, walks out of the car, searches the down body, and finds some sort of golden black part. Clearly, it means something to him. Just identifies where he has to go next to find a stolen car. We cut to a warehouse / chop shop / taxi hub / station / something, where we see there's a lot of things going on here. Where we see money and stuff getting taken out of taxi cabs. Abram Tasarov, played by Peter Stormare, basically. It's kind of cool, right? Because he basically recaps John Wick 1 for us in record time, and then essentially telling us that they have John's car. He tells us
just in case you're watching a John Wick film for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. So he tells his assistant or helper, or like his number 2, I guess, right? About John's about John's actions killing his brother Vigo and nephew Yosef. Once again, we get a reminder of how badass John is to these guys. John Wick is a man of focus, commitment, and sheer fucking will.
Yeah, literally hits all the notes, tit tat, right? Brings up the pencil story again. He killed a man with a pencil.
He's like, who does that? like the fact that he has to exclaim afterwards. Like, yeah, I've heard the story.
Yeah, exactly.
While all that's happening, we get jump cuts to John slowly disposing of people on his way into the warehouse. Like he took a dude was lighting a cigarette. John just takes a fucking lit cigarette to the hand and stuffs into the guy's mouth. Sick. Yeah, the pencil story is brought up again, because it kind of just shows that the fact that everyone's clearly heard of John Wick because of that story.
Correct.
And they're basically trying to hightail it out of there because they know Wick is on his way for his car. And he knows that giving the car back doesn't matter at this point. He just wants to be out of John's way. So John finds his car. All hell breaks loose with him running people over and smashing people around with the car, like vehicular violence everywhere. After getting flung out of his own vehicle, he takes out a couple more bad guys hand to hand with some gun action. He's like not even killing them. He's like kind of like just disposing of them, right? Like into the knee, get out of my way type of deal, right? And then we like get like a cut of just Abram reacting to the screams of his men being disposed of in the background, which is kind of just like the fear in his eyes, like, oh God, it's happening. It's happening.
It's just like, here we go again. I'm the next guy to have all my goons get killed downstairs as John Wick slowly and methodically makes his way through them all towards me.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, when's my time coming? So John arrives in Abram's office and surprisingly offers Abram a drink of Abram's own alcohol, but, offers him a drink and signals for peace.
I make that trade.
And Abram asks him if John is even capable of peace, but gladly accepts the whole offer of not being murdered. We see John return to his beloved car, drive home with it, and we see what he is actually after in the entire time he was looking for his car. Like, his car is super fucked up, right? You would assume that he loved this car. Why would he destroy it?
It looks like the end of a demolition derby. It's really incredible.
It's destroyed. But then we see him opening up the glove box, and we see a birthday card from his late wife, Helen. So back to John being home with his doggo from the end of John Wick 1.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. We see him like gearing down, flashbacks of his wife, him watching the video of her on his phone again, right? Now he also lets the doggo sleep in the bed with him. Like, not even like trying to get him out of there. He's just like, nonchalant at this point. It's cool. John Leguizamo's back. Let's go. And
Luigi himself.
Yeah, we have a little bit of we have some nice banter here, right? He's like, your alignment's probably a little jacked up, and you got a dent over here on the side. Not if you realize you have a crack in your windshield, like after his car is destroyed. I love the banter between these two. It's great. So we find out Aurelio is the one who's helped John track his car down. Once again, John stows away his assassin's box in the basement of his home. The box with all the tokens, his guns, and all this other stuff. Covers it with a new fresh layer of concrete. Kind of like tries to go back to his regular life. He then gets visited by Santino Di Antonio, played by Riccardo Scarmazzo, who is asking John to come back and fulfill a marker since Santino is owed by John due to the help that he must have received for completing the impossible task, the one that we hear rumblings of in the first movie of how John got out of the underworld. The marker is essentially kind of like a blood seal, like a blood contract type of deal. John continually insists that he's done. He doesn't want to come back, clearly, right? The whole point is that he only came back because he had a score to settle, and that is in John's mind. Santino says, okay, I see how it is. Walks outside and then gets a grenade launcher and just starts blowing up John's house. I was like, oh shit, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, I was like, what the hell?
Yo, fuck this dude. Also, thank God the dog's okay. I didn't have it in me for another dog to get murdered.
No, yeah.
Like 10 minutes into the movie, I didn't have it.
I don't think they're gonna go back to that plot point. I would think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Fire department shows up. Jimmy the cop shows up once again. Ask if he's kind of nonchalantly, hey, gas leak? And John goes, yeah, gas leak. And then we get from Jimmy, are you working again, John? Very much so a gag that was reused from the first movie as well.
Yes, yes, I do recall.
Clearly showing that Jimmy knows who John actually is.
Yes.
Take a short
break. Which
explains
explains a lot, because how do you do all this illicit shit and not have the cops around?
Yeah, right.
Unless one of them is able to kind of, keep everybody off the scent, right?
Yeah, exactly. So from what it looks like, Jimmy's the guy of the from what it seems like, at least anyway, right? He's the guy from that particular police station who's like the guy who has to kind of keep John's business under wraps from everybody else and not letting it blow up even bigger than it should be. But yeah, we'll take a short break from the synopsis here, and we hit the ground running this time, right? Again, we start right into action with that, that bike chase right through New York City.
Mm-hmm.
The big old car stunts. There's a bunch of like stunt driving going on. He jumps out of a warehouse with with his with the car that he stole back from Abrams like warehouse type of deal, right? Um, Again, some really cool fights right off the bat. Some again, we're kind of like you know what John Wick was. We're just gonna start bigger right off the bat. You know what I mean?
Right. And I appreciate that, especially with most sequels. Like, I appreciate that you know what you're coming back for. Don't try to make it a new movie. Just give us more of what you gave us last time. And John Wick 2 starts off impeccably in that regard.
Yeah, and then we mentioned it in the first bit, right? In the first part of the synopsis, where like again, like Abram, Vigo's brother, like literally summarizes John Wick 1 for the viewers if you've never actually caught it. So I was like, well, here you go. If you didn't catch it, here, this is all you need to know. If you're coming in here for some reason skipping the first movie, here you go. Real quick, talks about his brother, his nephew, and basically they stole the car. They killed the dog. That's literally all you need to know. Again, if you want to call it a plot, we'll call it a plot. It's the inciting event, and it's all we needed for John Wick 1, I guess, right? To be fair.
Yeah, I mean, who among us wouldn't understand a man's, quest for revenge with just those short bursts of information, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If someone takes my car and kills my dog, I'm going to go after them and destroy their entire empire, and by any means necessary, right?
Yeah.
Aren't we all like that?
Unfortunately, our lack of extremely awesome John Wick skills is not gonna get us very far.
Yeah, well,
I
at
will
least
try.
we tried.
I'm gonna stumble off my front porch, probably stub my toe, sprain my wrist, but I'm gonna go out there and do it. And then, like, even though I said, like, we hit the ground running, we don't get a whole lot of action, right? It's like we hit that opening scene, and then we kind of get like a nice little cool down right almost immediately afterwards.
Mhm.
It's kind of like even though it comes out of the gate running, we do have a relatively subdued start for what I assumed was just going to be like a murder fest after John Wick 1.
Well,
Yep.
don't you worry.
we keep moving.
We're getting
forward,
there.
We're gonna get there. Okay, you want to go take the next section here, Jeff?
Yeah, I can. So,
Okay.
After the scene at John's house, he heads into New York City and of course makes his way towards the Continental, which in the first film is basically a mercenary and assassins safe house, right? It's a hotel helmed by basically the head assassin guy who makes all the rules for the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's where assassins and those sorts of people can stay and work out their business, right?
Yeah, and
From the central location.
they use the services of the Continental to like
Right. So the Continental has a ton of services, which we'll see here. Among them is pet sitting, where John leaves the dog with Lance Reddick, who is what would you call him, the maitre d, the front desk
the concierge,
associate. Yes.
The front desk guy.
And we also see the banking system in play here, right? Where Winston, the head honcho, right, is talking with the guy who makes the gold coins. And if you remember in the first movie, the underworld doesn't necessarily use American dollars or British pounds or yen or anything to conduct transactions. They use these gold coins, right? They basically look like gold doubloons, right? That you would see in like a Pirates of the Caribbean, something like that.
Yeah.
And they act as sort of like a credit system where the individual's dollars or the individual's coins have a certain value as compared to others. So like a John Wick coin is going to be worth more than others, right? Because of who he is. But anyway, you just see some guy making more of them, I guess, because they need more currency in the underworld, right?
Yeah.
And so during this meeting, Winston sends the moneymaker guy away, tells John that there are rules to the underworld, and mentions the high table, of which the Santino guy is a part of, right?
Yeah, he's trying to take over his sister's spot in the at the high table, essentially.
Right. Okay, so you obviously the high table is just like the upper council, any other sort of fictional, fictional higher power that exists in media, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of get the idea there. So basically, the gist is that Santino wants John to kill his sister so that he can take over her territory in New York City.
Yeah.
And
Basically.
so John is bound by blood because of this super coin, this special coin, which I forget the name of. They have a name
The
for it.
marker. They call it a marker.
Yes, the marker. So it's basically like a larger coin that we'll learn a little bit more about towards the end of the movie here. But basically it looks just like a giant coin,
Yeah, giant
almost like
coin.
coaster sized.
Yeah, and it like opens up, has like two spots for their thumbs. Like they prick themselves. They basically do like a blood seal inside of it.
Right. Well, that's
And
where I was getting to.
yeah,
They reveal that later in the film.
yeah.
So for now, we just see this thing as like a giant coin, and it's like, well, if he
The mega
gave you the
coin.
marker, what's that?
If he has the mega coin, you
Yeah, like
owe him.
it's like the Yoshi coins
Yeah, exactly.
in Super Mario World.
Yeah.
So if someone gives you the marker, you have to do what they want you to do. So John reluctantly takes on the case, and he's going to kill Gianna, Santino's sister.
Yep.
So we get a nice little montage here of John getting his his gear. He's getting his guns, he's getting his suit, he's getting a ton of other stuff. And then he makes his way to Rome, which is where Gianna is currently located. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, there's a Continental in Rome.
The Continentale.
Right. So obviously, of course, we get Italian versions of everybody. And you get an Italian Winston, you get an Italian concierge, right?
Yeah.
The funny little exchange asks him if he's here to kill the Pope, and he's like, no, he's here for other work. And I really love the interactions between John Wick and the staff, right? The people
Yeah.
here, as they kind of make it seem like he's actually here for work. And it's like, I'd like a tasting, but in reality, a tasting is to try out the guns.
Yeah, this is a fantastic little sequence here that we get for him as like our second like gear up, like so like setup section, I guess, mission prep.
Yeah,
This is a
our second
fantastic.
dip into the underworld and all the services that it contains, right?
Yeah, just a little bit that I want to step in here for a little bit. It's like he gets the new suit, right? The new bulletproof suit, which they're asking him, like, so what is the event? He's like formal, he's all this other stuff, and then he's like, what about the cut? And he's just like tactical. It's like I guess there's only so many ways you can kind of skirt around what type of suits you need.
Correct.
Before you just end up with tactical. Because before that he was rocking the black tactile neck, right? So, but, like with the
Yes.
suit, but now he has to get like a proper like evening suit essentially, right? He gets the layouts for the mission, which that one's pretty like kind of standard. There's no real like dancing around that one.
Mhm.
But then the sommelier, the tasting, that is a great exchange with Peter Serafinowicz as the sommelier, talking about like like I know
The
you
idea of the sommelier as the guy who has all the
all
guns,
the guns.
is hilarious.
And like he's like, oh, our best cutlery, freshly sharpened, and I was like, that's a good fucking line.
Yeah.
Okay.
That this whole scene is hilarious, and anybody, God, just watch this on YouTube. Just watch this scene on YouTube.
Yeah,
If you're
it's
gonna
a good
watch
scene.
any part of this film, well, there's actually two parts of this film that we're gonna get to a little later that you have to watch. It's high comedy. There are more comedic scenes that are better written in this film than in actual comedy films, I think.
Yeah,
And this is one of them, and the other one is coming a little later here.
yeah,
So anyway, John's all geared up, right?
yeah.
John's got all his stuff, and we cut to Rome. We cut to Gianna at her event, right? And like every other event in a neo-noir thriller, it's a loud concert.
Yeah, like it's like a fancied up it's a coliseum, but there's like a techno concert going on at the same time.
Right, but it's like techno rock.
Yeah.
He's got like techno metal, and there's a woman singing very loudly,
with a
and
guy and a guitar, the guy playing a guitar with a violin bow. Like there's a lot of weird stuff going on. It's cool.
these only exist in neo noir films.
Yeah.
These sorts of bands and music only exist in neo noir films. Anyway, so Gianna's upstairs, she's getting ready, and much like the namesake, the Baba Yaga, John just kind of appears behind her as she's getting ready, and she knows what it's all about, right?
Yeah, she knows what's gonna happen. He's clearly here for her.
Right. And so they have a little conversation. Obviously, John is reluctant to do the job because he obviously has no ill will towards her. They mentioned that they at one point were friends. And so she kind of tries to do her part, and she slits her wrists as she gets into like a pool. And
Yeah, the warm bath.
right, and then John lets her do all that, but then still puts one in her head while she's in there, I guess, to tie the loose end and claim the deal, right?
Yeah.
And then as John is on his way out, the first of many what appearances is a man by the name of Cassian, who is played by the rapper Common.
Great. I loved this this bit right here. As soon as I come coming to screen,
This relationship is the funniest thing
it's
on
so
the
good.
planet.
It's
I
so
love
good.
this relationship. So John and Cassian have this kind of stare down, and they're kind of asking each other, "You here for work? How'd it go?"
Unfortunately
And then
successful.
yeah, and then Common kind of figures out, oh crap, he was here for Gianna, and immediately goes on the offensive.
Yeah, they do this cool quick draw scene with both of
Yeah,
them, and it's funny because it's quick draw, but they both have bulletproof suits on, so nothing technically happens for those
right.
two guys.
And you get a really great scene, and I love this scene as in this fight because it's not super choreographed like the others. It's dirty. It's like a dirty
Yeah,
fight. It's not super clean. It's not super crisp, right? It kind of feels like they're fighting in the mud,
yeah,
and it feels like a real fight. And
hmm
I really appreciated that. And the two of them, as they're fighting and they're brawling and they're they, they're like fighting down a flight of
yeah,
stairs, and John keeps falling down the stairs. It's just the most ridiculous shit. He gets up and
yeah.
he like takes a couple swipes at Common, and then Common takes a couple swipes at him,
He's got him in
and
a
then they fall
chokehold.
down the stairs.
Yeah,
Eventually they crash through the front window of the Continental, and this is the next scene
yeah,
that I think anybody who appreciates just hilarious writing needs to watch, because after they go through the front door, the head honcho of the Italian Continental,
Julius.
Julius, right, basically sends the two kids to their room to figure out their problems and be nice to each other. It's basically like they are two siblings squabbling in the kitchen, and he's like, "Go to your room and figure it out." And it hard cuts to John and Cassian sitting at the bar, just staring at their drinks after they had just fought for what, like 20 minutes?
Yeah, basically.
And it's so funny because I remember just sitting there watching it. I looked away for half a second, and I look back, and it's just John and Common sitting there staring at their drinks, like pouting. And it's like, what the hell happened here? It's so funny. Basically, the gist of the conversation that they have is it cuts about to a little bit more of Cassian's backstory, and that as a professional courtesy, they both promise to finish each other off as quickly as possible, right? So nobody's going to suffer here.
Yeah.
And then the two go their separate ways, and John immediately checks out of the Continental.
So I think it's a nice spot for a break here. But yeah, you were mentioning that yeah, the interaction with him and Cassian is fantastic. That fight is really, really good. A lot of groundwork, some jujitsu going on, right? A couple cool, like there's a really cool reload where like Common's choking out. I'm gonna flip back and forth between calling him Cassian and Common, but
I know, me too.
but like there's a one where like Cassian's like choking him out, and like John uses like the back of his leg to hold his gun to throw a magazine in there, and like cocks it against his own leg. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of cool like grappling and gun work, and like the scene from escaping from the Coliseum, right? He has like the guns all stowed away in the long hallway, right?
Yes,
The
yes,
shotguns and the rifle, and again, we see it before. Every time he's setting up somewhere and he's in his zone, there's fucking blue light everywhere.
yep.
But yeah,
That shotgun was beautiful, by the way. I
oh right,
loved that
it was
look.
it was
That
such
gun is beautiful.
it was so good, especially in the fact that he's in like he's in a tight enclosed space. So if you want to do a bunch of damage, you got to bring a shotgun with you.
Right, but
And
it's a beautiful shotgun.
yeah, it's great. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here, like the John with Santino and John, right? When he was asking him to go kill his Gianna, his sister.
Right.
Gianna was played by Claudia Gerini, by the way. The legend of the Baba Yaga is kind of like there, right? Santino's like he knows John's pissed, right? And he's like, and I know as soon as you came into the door, you were already thinking of ways how to kill me. Like, how would you do it? With her, with like with her pencil, with that guy's glasses, and then John just like responds menacingly, "My hands, stop fucking asking. I'm gonna fucking murder." And then like you see this kind of like weird fear, but like excitement. As it's like, oh, that's awesome. Like just like good to know that the legend, the legend that surrounds you is like just as like as intense as the stories make it seem to be. The scene with Gianna committing Sudoku in the bath, right?
Yes,
uh,
Sudoku.
John shooting her. You can actually interpret it in a couple different ways here, right? So you said he put the bullet in her, right, to essentially confirm the job, right? So
Right.
yeah, that is absolutely true. There's an and/or thing here where he could be doing the deed himself because of the religious connections, with Rome, Catholicism, Christianity. Like he has the big old like cross right on his
Right.
tattoo. Obviously they're in Rome. Like Rome, the Vatican. They mentioned the Vatican, the Pope. They covered everything. Suicide's a big no-no in context of religions. So it could have been one of those things where like even though they especially because they used to be friends, he could be doing her a favor, right?
Right. Protecting her soul from the afterlife and all of that.
Exactly. So that's kind of like because I was confused when I first saw that bit, and I was like, what? Why? I mean, she already bled out. Why bother, right? I mean, I guess confirm
I
the
just
job.
figured that, hey, whether her arms are cut, if they see a bullet in her head,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it.
they'll
It's
know that it was
clear.
done exactly by it completely. The task was completed by John. Again, a lot of long action cuts. They just like kind of let action play out, right? A couple more shots of like John doing like a press check, right? The where you kind of pull the slide back a little bit to confirm that there's a round still in the chamber without fully racking the gun, so a bullet doesn't fly out accidentally.
Hmm.
And a cool thing that I kind of noticed with him and Cassian was Cassian came in hot, right? He came in just rolled over rolled into John with the car. He came in aggressive. And but even though they were fighting, right, like you can kind of tell John was on his way to the Continental because he technically finished his job, right? But like John wasn't trying to kill Cassian. He was like disarming him. He threw the gun away in like early part of the fight. He was kind of just like trying to make his way, kind of out of there in the first place. So this fight was very much so like a Cassian trying to get his revenge thing. And that was kind of like a small detail I realized after watching this scene a couple times.
Has I feel like if you really enjoy watching people get hit by cars, you will love this movie because
There's a lot
I
of it.
think at least 6 or 7 people have been hit by cars between John Wick 1, John Wick 2. Like, there's a lot of people getting destroyed by cars.
Yeah,
And a lot of it's John.
including John. Like John does not get any breaks here as well because of that.
John is basically like so like there's a common professional wrestling trope that like if you like look at Ric Flair, he'll cut himself and start bleeding. It's like
Mm.
if there's a car in any scene, John's going through it. I don't know what it is, man, but Keanu Reeves, I guess maybe he just really likes the stunt work of getting hit by a car because this motherfucker gets hit every like 10 minutes by a car.
For real, right?
That's at least what it feels like.
Yeah. I mean, again, it kind of shows is like, even though John Wick is this super assassin, right? He's still not immune. He's still getting.
He's still human.
He still gets fucked
He still
up.
gets fucked up when you get hit by a car, right?
Yeah, but usually if you get hit by a car, you're kind of done for now, right?
Yeah,
But no, he goes on an extended fight with fucking Common.
right, exactly.
I guess
And he's got his hands full
exactly.
as we continue on here.
So we get a short scene of Winston collecting the marker from Santino. So we mentioned before, we're going to get a little more into it here, right? There's an exchange here talking about, like, because Santino's like, why bother fulfilling the marker? You know, like, what if John's not even around anymore? But Winston's like, hey, rules are rules. I'm just doing my job, right? So he kind of like forces Santino to fulfill the marker. The thing opens up kind of like a locket, and there's a bloody thumbprint in there, which is John's, I guess, from the initial like request of the marker, right? Because he needed the help from Santino to fulfill the impossible task in the first place. But now that John had completed the favor that Santino was owed, and that's like a big rule running theme of like, you know, like promises have to be fulfilled.
Right, no outstanding debts.
Yeah. So because the favor that was owed was fulfilled, he like like a little needle comes out from the top of the locket, and Santino just like jams his thumb onto it, nice and slow, just enough to really gross me out, and then like just puts the thumb on the opposite side of the inside of the marker to so now you see two bloody thumbprints there to confirm that the marker has been fulfilled.
Right, the blood oath has been fulfilled, and it's closed. That's it.
Yeah.
Whatever favor is closed.
It's done. Essentially, this should be like, this is done now, and like, you know, Winston's just basically confirming, cool, this is done, and hey, Santino, you fucked up because you dragged John back into this. So after letting Santino know that he screwed up for forcing John back into the fight, because John's pissed now. On the return back to New York, Santino places a contract on John, like as John's returning back to New York. Sorry. He places a contract on John to tie up any loose ends / fear of him retaliating now that the marker has been completed, and John wants revenge for being dragged back into the service. Multiple assassins attempt to kill John. There's a big sumo guy with a really, really cool fight, right?
I have trivia on him, by the way.
Do you? Okay, cool. I will.
Oh, yeah.
We'll catch that after we take a short break in a bit. There's the violinist busking. I have a short trivia here. She does not play violin properly. It bothers me. Anytime there's anybody playing any sort of instrument in like a movie, I am very like critical of it. I'm a musician, that's why. But like, it bothers me because she like holds the violin wrong. She's holding the bow wrong. I hate it. There was two dudes killed with a pencil again. It was like, oh, we can finally get to see it. The legend's true. John Wick will kill people with pencils. And eventually we get this really awesome sequence here where Cassian catches up to John in the subway.
the final part of these two guys are brothers and are just having a bad time with each other. So this is hilarious.
Yeah, this is great. So there's an extended fight sequence here with silenced pistols in the crowd. So like, John's on like the lower level of I forgot the name of this place. It's in New York. I forgot the name of it, but
it looks like it's like it's One World Trade. It's like the subway. Oh no, it's not. It's like the path. Well, yeah, no, the path goes to One World Trade. That's right.
Because we see the path later on. So yeah, the One World Trade, and like, so Cassian's on like the upper level, John's on the lower level. They're walking in the crowd the same direction, and they're kind of like taking like pot shots at each other, but not hitting anybody else around them or each other at all.
Right, but instead of like how two brothers would do it, where they would punch each other in the arm, they have two silenced handguns.
Yeah,
and they're firing across basically the entire station at each other.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you see that. Do you remember that like ESPN commercial with the Manning the Manning brothers? And like they were like kicking each other and like giving each other wet willies while no one was looking.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
It's basically that, but with guns.
Okay, I don't know if you remember this, but there was an old This Is ESPN commercial. Like, it's a whole bunch of commercials, film documentary style, as if they were actually happening in the ESPN offices. And it's a scene where Archie Manning brings Eli and Peyton Manning, and basically they're going on the tour. And all they're doing is like punching each other in the arm. They're like kicking each other in the ass.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, exactly that one.
Yep. This is it. This is exactly that's exactly what I thought. I'm glad you thought the same.
but with guns.
Correct.
And knives.
Correct.
So
keep going.
So they make it through the crowd. They end up on like the platform for the path. Again, let's go. More things.
The path.
Talking about. And John kills two more dudes there. And this is like, which I find funny because there's like the announcement. And he's like, if you see any sort of suspicious activity, please report it. To the authorities, and there's just two dead dudes just like chilling on the platform.
Yeah, I was gonna say he doesn't even like think to, just throw them maybe onto the tracks or
No,
under the
just out in
tracks.
the
No,
open.
they're just two guys wearing black suits on a white tile floor in the middle of like between New York and New Jersey.
Exactly. Which is kind of funny because then it really kind of leans into that whole like joke about like New Yorkers have seen everything, so that's why they're not freaked out by anything, right?
Or they're just not trying to get anybody else's
Exactly.
business, so they're just going to keep
Stay
walking.
out of my way, not my problem. Stay away from it. So there's a really cool knife fight here with John and Cassian on the path train, with which basically ends up with John stabbing the knife into Cassian's aorta. I think that's what he says specifically, right? So but like in a way that it doesn't kill him.
As long as he doesn't take the knife out.
As long as he doesn't take the knife out. And and again, he calls it a professional courtesy, which is what they've been like using the term as of late for finishing the job quickly. But John basically leaves him alive. And then you just see this kind of like menacing grimace / grin on Common's face as John leaves the car. And then John, badly injured, stumbles off and gets assistance from a seemingly homeless man, right? Who then shoots the two pursuers of John with a silenced pistol, which is a hard, what the fuck just happened? We realize that homeless man is actually working for the Bowery King, which is kind of like a separate underground entity, like kind of like what the organization that John works for. But essentially,
because of course there is.
Yeah, exactly. There has to be a rival organization. But it's such a cool bit. And I think now that I really looked into it, especially on this most recent watch through, where like there's a whole network of homeless people who actually aren't homeless, but they're like hitmen, basically.
Right, because of course they are.
Yeah, which also terrifies me now from going to the city again. But so it leads John after asking the homeless guy for help. He gets brought to the Bowery King, who is played by who? Motherfucking Lawrence Fishburne, baby. Yo, this is such a treat to see. Okay, so I love the Matrix movies, right? We don't have to talk about 3 or 4, but 1 and 2, good stuff. And I love Lawrence Fishburne in those movies. And in this one, he kind of just chews up the scene every time he's in it, right? He's like real cocky, real big and boisterous, and just kind of like us. I just love the way he acts in this movie. So John essentially semi-successfully convinces the Bowery King, Lawrence Fishburne, a guy, to help him kill off Santino, because he's basically saying that if Santino takes over New York, right, that was the whole point of him killing Gianna, to take over her territory. That things are going to go absolutely terrible with Santino, doing like a hostile takeover of the territory. He offers John a pistol with 7 rounds in it. 1 round for every $1 million that is currently on John's head. Again, Santino placed a contract on him.
Sure, you're right. But also, yeah, okay, 7 bullets go off.
Yeah. And
okay.
She was like, really? This is all you're going to give me, my guy? You just kind of see this kind of look on John's face, like, are you serious? Yeah, the presentation was nice and all, but really, this is all you? Okay, whatever, fine, whatever, I'll get it done. So, and basically directs John to an art museum gala where he can find Santino. John kills off 7 of Santino's henchmen with all of his bullets. No surprise there.
Very efficient.
Yeah, very efficient. 7 bullets, 4 seconds, 7 kills. Very good. And immediately starts disarming and collecting magazines from the people he kills. Right, it's a really cool scene where so he's fighting other henchmen that are approaching him, right? Because essentially this is now the chase sequence, right? He's trying to chase down Santino. Santino's sending waves and waves of goons at him.
Because that always works.
Exactly. just by numbers, right? Exactly. Dealing with the kill bots. So you see John disposing of people, immediately starting to scavenge magazines and pistols off of them. And he actually ends up meeting up with Ares. We see her a couple times before the movie, but she's the female top dog, second, the number 2 to Santino, I guess, right? His top of his security detail, who's played by Ruby Rose. And then she's like a mute bodyguard with some short kind of funny interactions with Wick, right? She does the whole like be seeing you John type of like that quote that, but instead of her saying it, she sign
He
languages it
signs it.
out, which is a kind
And of course, John knows sign language too,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
He knows Russian. He's fluent in Russian. He's fluent in Italian. He knows sign language. He's fluent in English. I mean,
everything. John
of
is
course.
John is literally the OP character in every video game. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he has a fight with her. He ends up killing her as well too. No surprise.
Which,
John
by the
gets
way,
everyone.
she's a jabroni.
Yeah.
Like she went down super easy
Yeah.
as like the number 2 of this crime boss. Like he must be a shitty crime boss because his number 2 got absolutely squashed, like just
Yeah.
decimated.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, she got fucked up. That sucks.
Yeah, like it was a decent overall scene, but I was expecting more since she was supposed to be like like the head of the security detail.
So I figured she'd get some offense in.
But she John again just shows the skill of like what John is supposed to be in this universe.
Yep.
So John finally finds Santino in the Continental, where Santino smugly taunts John with his intent to continue living in the hotel under the protection of the Continental rules. And basically saying like, I can stay here forever, my guy. There's so many dishes here I can eat. I never have to eat the same thing twice for my time here. While basically saying like, can you handle staying alive and waiting for me as I basically wait you out as well?
Right.
Basically, then Winston's warning John like, don't do anything crazy, right? John just shoots Santino in the head and finishes his task.
Just a recurring theme of just icing the main target of these films, just like nothing.
No pomp and circumstance, just
right.
like
just ice them and leave.
Yeah. And then you would just hear this like ominous, "What have you done?" to John as John just walks away. The next day, Winston meets with John and explains that the Kimura group that was initially operating under Santino had doubled the contract on John and is now global. That was the $7 million that Santino placed on him. They've doubled it now.
Right.
And since
$14 million for one job,
for one man, exactly.
Like $7 million was already a lot for one job, and now you're getting double. So like, I mean, this is like king making money here.
Yeah. So, and because John had quote unquote conducted business on continental grounds, right? That's they said no business shall be conducted, no fighting, right. Basically, like while you're on the Continental. Winston is now forced to declare John excommunicado. Just means excommunicated, but it sounds so much cooler when you say it this way.
I do have comments on this too.
Okay. So as per the High Table's rules, which terminates all of his access and privileges to the resources of the underworld. So no more suit fittings, no more tactical suits, no more gun tastings, none of that.
No more montages. What the hell?
I know, sad time. But being a real one allows John 1 hour as a head start and provides him a marker for future use. And right before John leaves, John tells Winston to warn every assassin that decides to hunt him down that he will kill all of them. Just a cool, badass call-out scene right here.
No
right?
matter who you send, I will kill them.
And then so John departs with this dog. Winston makes the call enacting the excommunicado order to be activated within 1 hour. And then as the news of the contract spreads, more and more phones ring, signifying the sheer number of assassins in this city as John takes notice and continues running. And then that's how we end the movie.
Yep, it just ends without any sort of context to it. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, like we just know that more stuff is happening.
I'm gonna let you go first here, because I do have my thoughts.
Okay. So I've just got a couple things that I really, really liked from this section of the movie. The silenced pistol film, or the silenced pistol scene, as much as like I loved it, obviously because of the absurdity, is one of the first scenes where I lost touch of like the reality of the movie, right? Because the movie is absurd, we know that already. Yes. But like, there's like this little bit of like realism that bothers me because obviously I'm a big gun fan, and like obviously that's not how silencers work. You're gonna hear that in a crowd,
right, exactly,
where you're not gonna hit any no strays, you're not gonna hit any random person on the side. But it's entertaining, so it's like fine. I'll let it slide. It was
really funny. Just like the two of them just looking at each other back and forth, and just like giving each other pot shots every couple of steps.
Yeah,
was great.
every time Common walks by a pillar, basically we see him kind of like look forward, put the gun away for a second, need to make sure he doesn't look suspicious, and then goes
Right.
back to doing so. It's a good bit. There's a motif that is used in this movie a lot. I don't know if you noticed it during your watch, but we see characters a lot in reflections. So like in the beginning, John opening the door for Santino, we can't see him because obviously John's in the door, right? But we see Santino reflected in the glass on the side. John showing up like the boogeyman in Gianna's bathhouse mirror after while she's looking at herself, right? We see him just show up as the camera pans past her, and then we see him show up on the other side of her. The big old fight in the mirror art exhibition, right? They literally say reflection in the art description overheard from the speakers. There's a lot of like action in the reflection, like like John could be like fighting hand to hand with somebody, and you see we see them doing it, but the camera's aimed down, and you just see it from like a like a line down on the ground view, but clearly from the camera's reflection sense. There's a really cool shot of John walking through the multiple reflective doors. Looks like a bunch of like elevators.
Yes,
right.
I do remember that.
So I don't know how they did this shot. I'm still trying to figure it out. But like basically, it looks like we're looking at like John exiting. We think he's like walking towards us, right? That's how the shot is kind of initially meant to be portrayed as. But then we see the last door open, and there's no reflection. So like I don't know if there's like a cut there, or like they must have like had to. I guess maybe technically we're seeing it through John's eyes actually.
Does he not have a reflection because he's the Baba Yaga?
Oh my God, Jeff, you figured it the fuck out. Holy shit. But yeah, that's a cool shot. And then even right at the end, Santino's dinner plate, right? We kind of see this like kind of thing that Santino thinks, I'm safe here. So like he's like enjoying the comforts of the Continental, but it's reflected in the wine glass, right before his final interaction with John. So yeah, reflections is a big thing they use here a lot. There was there was an interaction with John and the Bowery King, where he says, where Lawrence Fishburne says, "Mr. Wick doesn't remember, but we met many years ago." That's gotta be a nod, right? There's gotta be a nod to the Matrix movies.
I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of it. I thought I was just kind of like watching and waiting, and then he tells the story about how John gave him like a cut on his neck and then gave him a choice to live or die, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't even think that could be a nod to the Matrix. I was like, oh, right, they know each other from the movie. Okay.
I was like, I heard that. I was like, this has gotta be, there's no fucking way that they just got away with that. I mentioned it before, John prepping in blue light, on the subway, in the catacombs of the Colosseum. Stop going near blue lighted areas. John's going to fucking kill you.
Or just stop going at him.
Yeah.
Just be like the guy. Just be like Kevin Nash from the first movie. Just be like, go ahead, John.
I'm out of here. See you later, guys.
Yeah, I'm not dying for this.
Go handle your job. And just like one final thing I wanted to cover, I guess, and then we'll go into your bits here. In the first movie, John had agency, right? He had chosen to pursue revenge and go on a rampage after his dog was killed and his car was stolen. In this movie, John's kind of more forced back into the underworld in this one because of those actions. So, which makes that short conversation that he had with Abram about knowing peace way more pointed. Because the first one he chose violence, and this one, he can't know peace because he's gonna be constantly dragged back into it.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
That was kind of like one of those things I kind of picked up after, like, again, like really analyzing this, what a lot of people would think just be like a brain dead action movie, but no, there is like absolutely something going on here in terms of like plot, right? At least there's more than I think people can actually like see from an initial watch.
Mm-hmm. The first one, he aimed to be like a one and done kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And all of the decisions that he made and everything that he did kind of played it to that point, right? That this was it. He was just getting revenge and then he was out. In this movie, he pulls that trigger knowing full well that this is it. Like, he's back, and now he has a life on the run, completely alone, just him and the dog, basically, because he, like, the only friends that he has, right, like, the Continental is going to be gone.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know, he took that shot knowing full well what was going to happen to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because those are the two rules, right? The two rules are no business on the grounds, and then what's the other one?
All
Was the
like
other one the contract?
like yeah, basically like all like contracts, all
Oh
all
yeah.
promises
All
like it
promises
must
must
be
be
like
kept.
yeah, it must be kept basically. That's like kind of the rules of
Mhm.
the unspoken. I don't know if it's like or not unspoken, but I guess like the two big rules that you have to abide by if you're going to be
Right.
within the organization.
Which brings me into why this whole part is like kind of funny to me. So I'm replaying South Park Stick of Truth, right?
Hmm.
So in it, you're playing as the South Park kids as they're all pretending to be basically like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones characters, right? And they have this whole system in place where everybody's kind of participating in this and they're all in on it, right? So
Okay.
when you see things like these are the rules, like the rules in the South Park are like you can't hide the stick of truth in a place that's not out in the open, and you should never under any circumstances fart on somebody's balls, right?
Okay.
Those are like so like those are the two rules in South Park. So I mirrored it to the two rules in the John Wick series, and I'm just laughing to myself
I
like,
mean,
okay.
arguably bigger stakes than than the John Wick universe.
I think like number one, not farting on somebody's balls. Number two, no business on the continental ground. Number three, no contract, obey, fulfill your contracts. And number four, keep the stick of truth. If I'm ranking them, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
I think like even John Wick, I think, would tell you you can't fart on somebody's
No, you
balls.
can't be doing that. Exactly.
The scenes where they send in the contracts, right? And they have this whole um syndicate of like underground not telemarketers,
The phone operators.
the phone operators and the
It's a
people.
dope scene.
Yeah, like they have this whole scene of like all these underground phone operators and paper processors and accounts payable. Just reminded me of South Park. Like they like the stick of truth. Like they all like everybody's in on this thing that they're doing. And it was just kind of like the parallels were super funny to me just because the immediacy of even like an hour before I watched the movie I was playing South Park and I'm like looking at these parallels like everybody's in on it. They have these rules that the guy in charge, right? Like so you have like Cartman is the guy making the rules in the South Park universe, and oh god, the guy from the Continental,
Winston.
Winston is like the guy that makes the rules in this world. Just the parallels kept making me laugh. So that's my tangent there. The other little bit of trivia is the sumo guy
Yeah.
looked familiar to me, and for Indian media consumers, he will also look familiar. Obviously, for Japanese sumo connoisseurs, he will look familiar. And for wrestling fans who went down the deep rabbit hole, he will also look familiar. That man's name is Yamamoto Toyama Ryuta, or simply Yama. He was a sumo wrestler for a few years back in the early to mid 2000s. And then he was basically like a reality TV show star in India for a few years. He was
Oh,
on like basically their Big Brother.
what the hell?
Yep. He
Okay.
was also a part of TNA's Indian wrestling promotion called Ring Ka King.
What the fuck?
And
Okay.
if you're a pro wrestling fan and you've watched Marky D's video on this, dear listener, he's the guy that they call Samosa Joe, and that's him. That's this guy. So when I saw him, I was like, wait a second, that's Samosa Joe. And sure enough, that's him.
I just imagine the DiCaprio like meme now, right? Of him aggressively pointing at the screen, or like
Yep.
you know what I mean, kind of thing. That
I was
that's
like,
just
wait
you.
a second,
Like, I
because
know
I,
that
I
guy.
had actually just watched the whole Ring Ka King series that the one YouTuber guy Marky D just did. And so I got to the point, where I saw him and
Mm.
he factors kind of heavily into like the final stretch of Ring Ka King. And I saw him in the movie. I'm like, wait a second, that guy that looks like him. That looks like Yama. And sure enough, So there you go. There's your random bit of history. If you want a nice laugh and you like pro wrestling, definitely check out that Ring Ka King. I remember when that was like happening live, and it's a wild show. I mean, it plays up all the pro wrestling tropes. If you're like me and you like the carny shit, it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, no, this is
But that
yeah.
that was all I had as far as the little trivia is concerned. I don't know if you had anything else.
I mean, like I have a couple things that I just think of, like again, like because we see a lot of like, kind of like not cameos, I guess, right? But like the casting choices, right, for people who show up
Correct.
in the movie, like you know, there's a lot of like you know well recognized, very much so recognized people who show up, you know, in the John Wick movie so far, right? Like like uh Jimmy's a regular in a couple shows, right? I mean, the fact that Ian McShane is still Winston, you know, again, Commander Zavala is still taking care of John Wick's dog. Um, again, the sommelier, right? That was Peter Serafinowicz, right? There's just like a lot of people who show up in these in this movie in the series now, and you also see a lot as well too. Is like a lot of people who like John like essentially just disposes of. A lot of those guys are, you know, longtime stunt actors, you know, from all around the world, right? You know, he fights the two dudes, the two Asian dudes in the park after killing the big sumo guy, Yama. You said right? Yeah, Yama. So
Yep.
like you know, those two guys as well are, you know, like longtime martial artists and stuntmen. So you know, again, there's a lot of people here if you are really in the know, or like if you follow a lot of like you know who like these actors are and the stunt actors are, who's doing the stunt work. There's a lot of people who you recognize, and it's really cool seeing them. Not again, not I don't know if you want to call them a cameo, but it's like they're kind of just regulars essentially at this point in this type of like action movie type of thing, and I really like seeing a lot of that stuff. Again, I think like at first I felt Common was a weird casting choice, but him and John, you know, but a Common and Keanu have this
Keanu.
really good kind of like chemistry. I feel like
I
right.
did. I agree. I thought they were awesome together, and it felt like I told you. It felt like a real fight between two guys. It didn't feel like a super choreographed stunt action film. It felt like two dudes fighting for their motherfucking lives,
Yeah.
brawling on the New York City streets and trying to win by any means necessary.
Or yeah, and was it no, they were still in Italy. They were still in Italy at that point.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but both they were also fighting the New York City You're also not
That's
wrong.
right. That's right. Yeah.
But there's another cool thing that I like seeing here as well, especially with the John and Cashian thing, right? Where they knew each other's drink of choice.
Yes.
You know, again,
yes. That was cool.
They're professionals. They're professionals. They have to be. They're respectful of each other.
They're also siblings.
They're also siblings, and they're also trying to murder each other. But yeah, that's again kind of like a cool interaction with that. Well, I am gonna dig a little bit at comment here a little bit, bro. He should not try speaking Italian. It was just it wasn't like I'm not good Italian either, but like it was funny hearing him like really trying to speak Italian with Gianna, especially.
Oh, forgive him that he's not Mr. John Wick. Speaks every language, Mr. Allspeak, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, John's Russian's also not great either. To be fair.
Yeah, I guess so. Everybody's got shortcomings, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. We like Keanu's not perfect, but he's close to it.
Right.
The reveal that the Bowery King is Lawrence Fishburne. I like actually like I'm gonna use a term that you use here, but I popped for this one.
Hell yeah, brother.
I was like, yes, go, my God. So I watched this in theaters, and I watched it like want to say like a week and a half, 2 weeks after the movie came out. So I was essentially in the theater by myself when I saw this one. So I could just yell when I saw something dope on screen.
Right.
But yeah, like I'm just happy that we see Lawrence Fishburne and Keanu working together again. You know, I mean, especially now that we know now, right? There was that weird thing with Fishburne not coming back for Matrix 4. I mean, honestly, good for him.
Yeah, probably better off.
Yeah, better off at this one, honestly. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. Because they go back for so long. They have another chemistry that I really like from between them, which I think just helps their interactions just play out so much nicer and more believable in my opinion.
I also appreciate his Pigeon Man from Hey Arnold cosplay.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember if it's from 3 or 2 now, but essentially, like, he basically treats the pigeons like their communications network. They can't track it. That's essentially kind of like
correct.
So like that's the whole reason for him being like the Pigeon Man kind of guy. Again, since he's supposed to be the Bowery King, and his network or his underground community is a bunch of homeless dudes. What would it would be kind of suspicious if you see a bunch of homeless people with cell phones, talking about their next hit job type of deal. So the pigeons being their messaging choice is kind of like a little bit more subtle and more a little bit less inconspicuous.
Correct.
Yeah, but that's a good bit, and I appreciate you remembered the Hey Arnold bit. I was actually thinking of it myself, and I was like, no one's gonna remember this. No one's gonna remember this scene.
And
Like,
please, everybody remembers Hey Arnold.
yeah, if they don't, they should go back and watch Hey Arnold. Go watch John Wick and then go watch Hey Arnold. That's
yeah, exactly.
That's
Watch it at the same time.
at the same time. They're basically the same thing.
Exactly. Agreed.
But yeah, so like that's really basically it for the movie here. Again, I love the series, and I'm looking forward to doing John Wick 3 as well. And I'm glad that you enjoyed the first one. And
I did. I really did. So I think the first one was better.
Okay.
But I do like I appreciate and I'm thankful that they didn't try to rewrite John Wick, right?
No.
They gave us more of the same.
Expand the underground type of thing, right?
Yep.
A little bit, just enough to really bring us even more so into the story.
I know. I am a little sad that like these underworld cast of characters are going to be gone, presumably in the third one. I'm not quite sure yet, right? But it just kind of seems like John's on his own for the next film, and moving forward, barring any sort of miracle, I guess, or unless the guy in charge rewrites the rules, or lets John fart on somebody's balls or something, right?
That's just gonna be written into John Wick 4. Like,
that's basically what happens in John Wick 4. He farts on somebody's balls, and so he gets.
We spoiled the movie for you guys. I'm sorry.
He gets excommunicadoed again.
We saw a screener. We figured it out. I'm sorry, guys.
I talked to Keanu. He ate his weight in Taco Bell the night before. And...
Oh, and I guess one other thing I want to point into here. So we got action right off the bat, right, for this movie, right? We get to see, but it's mostly kind of wrapping up the story from last movie, essentially, where he's getting the car back. That's basically the last thing he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, there's like a big lull. I mentioned it, right? There was like it was a bunch of action in the beginning, then a lull for a while.
Well, you got to set the story for this film.
But the next time we get action into John Wick 2 is 55 minutes into the film, which is wild considering, like, when I got you into John Wick, like, it's a lot of just nonstop action. The fact that they held off for like more action for so long is wild to me. But like it made that like blow up scene in the Coliseum so much more intense because of it. Now we're like, we're in for the ride at this point.
Yeah, but it picked up for sure. And honestly, that first hour flew, man.
Yeah, right.
That first hour flew by. And so for not having any action, or not having a lot of action, it certainly didn't feel like it dragged on or anything. So
no, and it absolutely helped, like, started setting up the extended world building in this movie. Knowing the markers, there's something higher than a currency. The fact that, like, there's another group that helped John complete the impossible task in the first place.
Right.
It's big. There's a lot of like kind of like handshakes happening off screen that we obviously as the viewer weren't knowledgeable about, because we came in to John basically trying to live a normal life. So now we're getting more and more of it, which if I remember correctly, you said in the first movie you want them to keep expanding on the whole underground, criminal underground world that they're already setting up in the first movie.
Yeah, and I think they did a really nice job of doing so here. It's super interesting. And it's like, well, now what's next? Is there anything above, the super coin? Is there, can you unexcommunicado yourself? What does the super coin get you? Can you fart? Can you actually fart on somebody's balls and get away with it?
God damn it. Well, aside from farting on people's balls, even like the mention of the high table, right? Because it was during the money exchange, or the allowing the money into the circulation, right? They teased it, but like, what is the high table? You know what I mean? Like, we don't know it. We don't really know anything about it. They just kind of mention it. So, and again, they're setting they're they're setting up for more stuff to show up later on in the John Wick extended unit. What do we call it? The John Wick, the JWCU.
Yeah, it has to be the John Wick cinematic universe.
Yeah, something, right? Or the John Wick universe, John Wick universe,
JWU.
That feels weird. J triple U.
Yes,
There you go. The J triple U, the John Wick universe.
that's it. You heard it first here, folks.
But yeah, like this is a really really good. I can understand with you. Like I can agree with you a little bit. Like I think John Wick 1 was like not tighter, but because I think John Wick was meant to be a single movie. Like because the first movie the first movie does end. Like it is like a point where if it didn't do well, they could have just like left it as is. But I think like it did a good job of kind of following in the footsteps of John Wick 1 and still being able to offer something essentially just more of John Wick without kind of stumbling over itself for the most part. But yeah, that's really it for me. Anything else you wanna go over before we call it here?
No, I think that's it. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see part 3. Can't wait for the eventual part 4. And I'm a fan, basically a fan for life here.
Let's
so
go.
This was awesome.
Let's go.
I'm really excited for the future here.
Yeah. So I mentioned it earlier. We will be doing John Wick 3 soon. I have gotten Jeff a copy of John Wick 3. I'm gonna be absolutely watching that again. We'll be discussing again for that one, and that should be landing on the same day as John Wick 4. Again, if I've done my calculations properly, it should be, which is awesome because that means I'm gonna be able to watch John Wick 4 like soon. It is coming up, so I'm really really excited for that movie. I think the second trailer came out a little while ago, which again just got me more hyped for it. And I just want to see more John Wick, basically, especially while Keanu's still up for doing all this action stuff on his own.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So once again, thank you very much, listeners, for tuning in for this episode. Leave us a like, a review on whatever audio platform you happen to be listening to us on. Again, we're on all the major streaming platforms now. Share with a friend who is super into John Wick and just likes to hear more John Wick content. There was absolutely a part of me when I got into John Wick where I just wanted to hear more about people talking about the movie. Again, keep following along with us here. We have John Wick 3 in the works already, and we hope to hear it from you guys next time.
See you later. I bite her.
Bader. Nice penis. Hey, Peter, you're gonna cry? You're gonna piss yourself? Maybe come and shit a little bit?